all things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Sane.
The court has ordered the return of this person and that the Trump administration should do it. They're paying an authoritarian leader in El Salvador to hold people in the worst imaginable types of prisons that he has sent there without any due process. And this isn't just about Mr. Garcia. This is about every American understanding that this president is making an assault on the due process rights that are afforded to people in our country. Everybody from Anton Scalia to other conservative think tanks have said very clearly, you cannot disappear people off American streets. We are a nation of rules, and due process is clearly one of them. And to erode the due process rights of anyone is a threat to the due process rights of everyone. This is a democratic slippage, and we all should be speaking out against it.
Okay, so that's the sane interpretation of what the Supreme Court clearly agreed 9-0 should happen to Mr. Abrigo Garcia. They need to facilitate his return. They need to bring him back, right? That's what the court found. 9-0. 9-0. Okay.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask for
Supreme
it
Court's
to get
asking
him back?
to.
Is that
What was the ruling
in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
in our favor?
in our favor against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual at El Salvador's sole discretion was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
no version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
I asked
¿Usted lo
President
liberaría,
Bukele, what is your, can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Oh, my
Well,
God.
I'm suppose you're not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
Why?
How can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
So you can release him inside El Salvador?
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
He's sitting there with a Central American dictator who has received $6 million from the United States of America in a contract that he agreed with the President of the United States of America to enter into, to take American immigrants without due process and put them in his Salvadoran gulag. And of course, if Donald Trump had looked at Bukele and said, yes, the Supreme Court, which it said, I'll read it to you. It says this: the order properly requires the government to facilitate Abrigo Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. The intended scope of the term effectuate in the district court's order is unclear and may exceed the district court's authority. So the district court needs to clarify its directive with due regard for the deference owed to the executive branch in the conduct of foreign affairs, but for its part, the government should be prepared to share what it can concerning the steps it has taken and the prospect of further steps, and the order heretofore entered by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is vacated. And then it says, Sotomayor and Kagan and Jackson join in the unanimous decision. And they say The United States government, now you realize that the only problem is that they used two words. They used facilitate and effectuate, the district court did. So they understand what facilitate means. It means take steps, okay? And everybody's clear about that. Effectuate means bring him home now. You do it. You get him home now. And so the court split the baby, as we've explained, courts always do, but came to a unanimous decision that said facilitate is what you need to do. Effectuate, well, let the district court explain that word a little more clearly. But yes, you have to take steps to bring him home. And here is the clarification that the other justices agreed and signed in a separate statement about the case, okay? It says the United States government arrested Kilmar Armando Abrigo Garcia in Maryland and flew him to a, quote, terrorism confinement center, end quote, in El Salvador, where he has been detained at the writing of this. It was 26 days and counting. To this day, the government has cited no basis in law. No basis in law for Abrigo Garcia's warrantless arrest, his removal to El Salvador, or his confinement to a Salvadoran prison, nor could it. The government remains bound by an immigration judge's 2019 order expressly prohibiting Abrigo Garcia's removal to El Salvador because he faced, quote, she's quoting from the district court's conclusion back in 2019. Wait till I show you how Pam Bondi, I mean, it's Orwellian. It's because he faced a clear probability of future persecution in El Salvador and, quote, demonstrated that El Salvador's authorities were and would be unable or unwilling to protect him. The government has not challenged the validity of that order. Instead of hastening to correct their egregious error, which they admitted, that he was deported because the administration of Donald J. Trump made an administrative error. They have said that repeatedly, okay? It's egregious error. The government dismissed it as oversight. The only argument the government offers in support of its request that the United States courts cannot grant relief once a deportee crosses the border is plainly wrong. Plainly wrong. And yet today, in the Oval Office, in the presence of a Central American dictator who's being paid $6 million American dollars to do this ugly thing of taking people just taken off the street without any due process, without a warrant, without an arrest, without any criminal charges, without any evidence that criminal charges could be brought or would be brought or are about to be brought or were ever brought or in any country ever, and in fact, in the face of orders expressly prohibiting their deportation to El Salvador, they put him in a prison where the people who are likely to harm him are. Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to RandiRhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.